My biggest learning is the value. So I told you I was a piece of crap for quite some time. But if we go back about 10 years, 9 years, I read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, great book.
That book changed, I would say, my general outlook. And then I started taking classes and really honing in on the skills. But I'd say around 2017, 18, I really started focusing on personal accountability, like self-awareness, personal accountability. My dad has had a few businesses, and quite frankly, it's almost inherent, but the desire was there because it was almost taught. Like, we have something special. And to this day, anybody who hears that story, they look at the can, they're like, yeah, it's just like all the other one. And then as soon as they take their first sip, their eyes light up and they're like, holy shit, that actually exists.
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
What's up? What's going on? It's your boy, it's your host, Jamar Jones, and welcome to another banger episode of the Forever Podcast, where we talk about business and talk about personal things, because business is personal. And we're going to get into some amazing discussion today. Had to bring my guy in. I always like to give a little backdrop of how we got connected. So in my eyes, we got connected in the worst way possible for myself. It was my first time golfing. And then I got introduced to Adam. And, I could barely hit the ball. I hit it a couple good times, like a couple good swings, good drives. I had moments of like, hey, he can do a little something. But there was also some embarrassing moments. And to meet somebody for the first time to have embarrassing moments. But I think that's why people golf. It's just to kind of get that little, that like, hey, like we could just do this thing, and you kind of get to know people and read people a little bit.
That's probably what made you comfortable, though, is you have somebody that hits like 5 good hits, then they shank it and hit the tree, and you're like, yeah, it's no different than what I just did. That's not so bad.
Right. Are they going to blow up? Do they get super upset? Do they play it cool? You can kind of see how somebody operates. And it was really cool. I got invited by Robbie. Shout out Robbie.
That guy's a man, by the way.
Yeah. I got to hit him up again. It's been a minute.
Same here.
Yeah. So, but we got connected there. We were drinking Carbliss right there. At the time, I had no clue what it was. I was like, hey, let me try this, see what's going on. And that's the other cool thing, is that nobody knows who people are in those kind of settings. And we just got to know each other by just playing golf, which is super dope. And so, I wanted to, welcome Adam, founder of Carbliss, to the podcast. We talk about everything on here, man, from things that are, from entrepreneurial journeys to kind of like your personal journey and struggles, successes as you build up. And then just things that are like, hey, like, what are the goals? What are you striving for? Like, what do you want to represent? Who do you want to be? And just sharing that with people so that way they get inspired, but better yet, they take some real action from these lessons. So first of all, let everybody know a little bit of what you got going on in your life.
I'm guessing you're asking about Carbliss?
Everything. That question is so open-ended.
Yeah, that is open as hell. So I'll go family business. Family, I have 3 beautiful daughters, 17, 5, and 2. Talk about a spread.
Yeah, that's a spread.
Not the betting type, but it's a spread. Have some really, it's really awesome to see those multiple different, age groups. So Haley's looking at college. The other one's looking at going into 1st grade. We've got an au pair named Manuela who lives with us, and my wife Amanda, who's my co-founder in the business, with Carbliss. And for fun, we like, when I say we, I like cars and motorcycles and anything that has to do with racing.
Like, what's your favorite?
There's a lot of them, and it depends on my mood. But I'm more of like a European, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Porsche.
Yeah.
Love F1.
So you like the foreigns?
I like the Europeans.
The Europeans.
Because like a Honda or a Toyota, I could give 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like the exotics that are crafted really well. You know, you could buy a Honda Civic and you could put 30 grand into it and it could probably beat a Lambo.
Right.
But when you think about the craftsmanship that goes into a Ferrari and a Lambo and the care and the desire that they're not mass produced, and also the attainability. Most people could buy a Honda and stick 30 grand into it, make it go super fast. Not many people can attain the price point of a Ferrari or a Lambo. So it obviously leaves something extremely great to be desired.
Yeah. I would love, I mean, I'm a big comic book fan. So like my dream is to get like the Lamborghini, I think Huracan, I think it is. All black, everything for the Batmobile.
Oh, that would be sweet.
That's what I want, man.
That would be sweet.
That's an all black everything, man.
Shooting out some flames in the back.
Yeah, flames in the back, man. Just everything blacked out, like completely. It just
Seeing it wouldn't have the same vibe if you did that in a Honda Civic.
no, not at all. That'd be broke, Batman. Come on. Like what happened to him, man? It's not a billionaire, man. Yeah, man, that's cool. I know a good friend of mine. He and I may have told you this actually, because I think maybe you mentioned something about your love for racing and stuff like that. But he's a co-owner of a scoring and timing business, and so he actually gets to travel the world, going to boat races, motor sports, car. I mean, all different stuff. They do stuff with NASCAR, F1. I mean, it's crazy, but it's all about timing and scoring. So like, how do you basically making that whole operation run? Right. That's what he does,
which is intense in itself. I mean,
yeah,
when you think about something coming down to like tenths or hundredths of a second,
yeah,
it's like a legal debate at that point.
Seriously,
and they start challenging people's systems.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's got to be pretty high intensity. I'd say people outside of the sport probably don't see that. But.
Yeah, he told me some stories where people will literally berate like the scoring table or whatever it is, and they'll literally like go right in there like, yo, I know I had like this gotta be off. It's gotta be off. It's like, dude.
I used my iPhone and you're wrong.
Yeah. So yeah, man. So let everybody know like what does the day-to-day life look like for you? I mean, in my eyes, you've had tremendous success within doing this, and I think the story's so fascinating on how you started the business and kind of where it's became like now. Yeah, just give everybody kind of a snapshot of like your story.
Yeah. So I'll try to deduce that into a few minutes.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you go back to 2018, I mentioned my wife Amanda and I. So January we started doing keto, and that's low carb, low sugar, high fat, moderate protein diet. And there's some takes that would say, you know, if you're going to do keto, don't drink. Well, let's face it, we're from Wisconsin. We're going to drink. So my wife would do vodka and then like, soda water and then a splash of cranberry to have some flavor. I was doing vodka, flat water, and then squeeze a lemon and a lime into it. And did that for probably about 5 or 6 months. So 2018, we're at in a lake near Road America, Elkhart Lake, and with a bunch of friends, and a buddy of mine brings me a tall white skinny can. And he's like, hey man, I know you're doing the keto thing. This is alcohol, 2 grams of carbs, 2 grams of sugar, 5% ABV.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Like,
give it to me.
I can drink.
Yeah. And it's in a can and it's prepared for me, right?
Yeah.
So I took a sip and I actually spit it back in the lake and I was like, that's not worth it.
Okay.
My wife tried it. She drank the sip, but buddy's name is Sam, gave the can back to him like, no thanks.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird because ultimately we didn't like it. It was, in our opinion, overly carbonated, not flavorful at all.
Definitely overly carbonated.
And if you look at like vodka, water, lemon, lime, that's not flavorful, but I knew what to expect, one. Yeah. And number two, it was, I can be sociable and still do this diet. But the fact that somebody put it in a can, I just felt like it needed more. And so very quickly went home and started mixing up and had this vodka lemonade, is what I originally called it. And friends and family loved it very quickly. And then it's, I know you were drinking vodka and water, but now you're drinking this.
Yeah.
And then it's, hey, bring that to the beach, bring that to the boat. Well, after about 3 or 4 weeks of that, it's like, I'm getting really sick of carrying my vodka and my ice and my cooler and then mixing stuff up on a boat.
Yeah.
So I went to every liquor store in the area. So Festival Foods is a great partner of ours.
Yeah.
Went to like 2 or 3 of theirs, the small liquor stores, the big places. And I bought about $500 worth of low carb, low sugar drinks.
Okay.
and I dumped out about $498 worth. Just they all, to me, they had a different, maybe a different brand name, different flavor, but they tasted the same. The general idea was high carbonation, not much flavor, but they were low carb, low sugar. And so, you know, part of that was what I'm making is really good. Everybody loves it. I have to assume somebody else has done that. And that proved that wasn't the case. So I worked in manufacturing at the time, in co-manufacturing for cheese. Go figure, Wisconsin guy, right?
Beer, drinking, cheese. Okay, we're gonna check off all the boxes.
Insert cliche here. So like another month goes by, and like I start like, hey babe, you know, maybe we should put this in a can. Somebody should put this in a can. Then it, you know, came to we, and so I started asking people at bars and restaurants, why are you drinking that? And insert name brand seltzer. So this is July 2018. Miller Coors had a brand called Henry's Hard Water, which is, I think, gone. They have their hard soda yet. White Claw and Truly were the big three. And so asking them, why are you drinking that? The answer I get is it's low carb, it's low sugar, it's low calorie. Okay, do you like the taste? 9.9 times out of 10. The best answer I get is, meh, it's okay. So I would immediately follow up with, what if I could give you a vodka lemonade with the same nutrition panel? And before it was even out of my mouth, people would be like, oh yeah, I'd much rather drink that. Now, I didn't get a bachelor's degree, so I didn't go to business school, but I can guarantee you at any one of those classes, if you ask them, hey, I asked this question of 300 people and I put my life savings into starting a business, they tell you that I'm an idiot. But, you know, here we are a few years later, still here. So we found a place to put my little drink into a 1,000-gallon batch. That took about 6 months to really figure out and dial in.
So let me stop you real quick, just for the question. What was the trigger point for like the switch in your mind to say like, hey, I'm making this for friends and family. I did a little market research, you know, to find out what was out there, what's the competition. But for you to turn it into a business, like what was that moment like? And especially you were working in manufacturing already, so it's not like you were like, oh yeah, I launch businesses all the time, you know. What was that?
I think it's kind of two parts for me. So well, maybe three. The first part being I've always desired to own my own business.
Okay. So you had that from like day one.
Yeah. My dad has had a few businesses, and quite frankly, like just, I mean, it's almost inherent, but the desire was there because it was almost taught. And so I assumed it would be cars and motorcycles, because what do they teach you? If you're going to start a business, do what you're passionate about.
What you're passionate about,
So, I mean, I racked my brain for 10 years on how to do that. So that was in the back of my mind, right, of just wanting to do that. This, I think after asking all those people, it was this inherent, like, we have something special. And to this day, anybody who hears that story, they look at the can, they're like, yeah, it's just like all the other one. And then as soon as they take their first sip, their eyes light up and they're like, holy shit, that actually exists. Like, what is this? But and then I think the third piece is that I had the manufacturing knowledge. So I think the general person who goes to, we'll say Walmart, and they look at all the chips and the crackers and the cheese, and they don't think about where it came from. They think about the name brand and their association to it, but that's it. And what I learned in co-manufacturing is if you look at, you know, the 15 ones that are on the shelf, there's maybe 3 manufacturers for all of those, and there's a really good chance it's almost the same product. So what I knew was I didn't have to build a $10 million facility. I didn't have to buy $5 million worth of equipment and hire 100 people. Ultimately, I could find somebody, if I could figure out how to make this batch scalable, I could find somebody to put it in a can for me. So it was almost linear. Like there wasn't, my wife made me, when I asked her, hey, I want to put this, I want to make this a product. And she said, well, what's your plan? I said, I'm going to put it in a can. I'm going to sell the shit out of it. And she said,
isn't that every entrepreneur's plan?
And she's like, Adam, no, what's your plan? I said, I just told you my plan. I'm going to put this in a can. I'm going to sell the shit out of it. Like, what else do you need? So our first business plan was her asking me about 15 or 20 questions. And then me filling it out, and it was, okay, now I'm comfortable with you spending, I think it was $2,500 or $5,000 to send to the company to make this into a scalable batch. So, I mean, it ended up just, again, being this segue. And then at that point, it's just become this like logical next step of, okay, now we said we're going to do this business. So now I need to get it made.
Right.
Now I need to get it on the shelf. Now I need to get it on more shelves. Now I need to sell more. Now I need to become profitable. Now I need to hire people. And it's, I think that's been the most fun part about it, is that I get asked the question, like, where was the moment? But it's just like, it's always just been happening. And I wish I could put a defining piece to it. But it just felt like the right next logical step.
You seem like a logical guy in general.
Depends who you ask.
Where did that come from? Did that come from, you know, just growing up? Was that through kind of your disciplines through early, you know, teenage years, or like how did that, where did that come from?
No logic in my teenage years, my man. No. Yeah, no logic in my teenage years whatsoever. I don't know. I think the conversation around business has like always just been a part of my life. Like I said, it's something I've discussed with my dad quite a bit. And then, you know, when you get to be part of that conversation, then even with your friends and you start to talk about ideations, and even when I was a craphead little high schooler, those conversations would still come up.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's a few entrepreneurs who started with the same roots I did, where, I mean, I've sold stolen goods. I've, you know,
Right.
things that are definitely Schedule I government issue things, you know, way back in the day.
Yeah.
But it goes back to the, you know, you create value and you sell a good. So that's always been there. The logical piece, again, it depends. I would say the manufacturing side forced me to be very logical.
Okay.
Because when you're troubleshooting issues or trying to create something within that space, thoughts and feelings are great, but they don't pay the bills. Logic and data and returns pay the bills. So it's been very interesting, because we lost a lot of money the first 3 years we were in business, and that wasn't something I knew about.
Right.
Like, you look at a lot of these big Ubers and Lyfts, they're still hemorrhaging money, but that's not talked about.
Yeah.
So what I thought I knew about business, had to retrain my brain, then work to get it profitable, then retrain your brain again. So it's been a very, very interesting journey.
And what was the biggest learning lesson from the loss? You know, like from you kind of learning about the losing of money? I can relate. You know, like I've been in business now 8 years. It's been a crazy journey, and just the ability to constantly, you got to learn from the failures or from the mistakes, basically. Yep. And if you don't learn from those, that's how businesses go out of business, you know, because you don't learn. You're like, oh, no, like we're doubling down, or we got to, you know, or you're blind to the fact, even worse. And so for me, I've had to constantly kind of change, pivot, or kind of reformulate what the idea is, or further niche down to get the best results of what I'm overall looking for before I, you know, try to go too big. So that was some of the learning lessons for me. But what about for you?
I think, I mean, it goes back to, you know, everybody hears the terminology, and I don't care if you own a business or not, everybody's heard the term, you got to spend money to make money. And
Yep.
I think in 99% of cases, that's very true. But to your point, at what point does that end? You know, if you're 15 years and you haven't made any money, why are you still spending it?
Right.
But I think part of my biggest learning is the value. So I told you I was a piece of crap for quite some time. But if we go back about 10 years, 9 years, I read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, great book. Get it.
Yeah.
Get it. If you're listening, if you're
read it
watching,
about 10 times.
get it.
So that book changed, I would say, my general outlook. And then I started taking classes and really honing in on the skills. But I'd say around 2017, 18, I really started focusing on personal accountability, like self-awareness, personal accountability. And I think that piece tied with the business process has been some of the best learnings, because I think about generic excuses. I've talked to a ton of entrepreneurs. I have this like super in-depth budget that drives my wife nuts. But I will tell you exactly how much I'm going to spend on hotels in June of 2024 right now if I opened up my budget.
Really?
Okay. So most people will do percentages, especially when they're starting out. But I'm thinking through, what do I believe to be the travel in June? How many nights am I going to stay? What's the average rate's $150? And I walk through that for each line item. So then I do a financial report each month. And this goes sales, this goes expenses, this, and okay, well, we missed sales by 200,000 or we smoked it by 1 million, right? Why? What did we do different? Did we under budget? Did we do a promo that we weren't anticipating? And I go through each line item and I call it hold myself accountable. And it's great if you're way over, right? But if you don't understand why you're way over, what's the value, right? Because if it's really good, I want to repeat it. If it's really bad, I want to fix it, learn from it, and move on.
Or cut it.
Yeah, exactly. Or cut it. But I think actually just had a conversation with some bankers literally right before this, and I had sent them my financial reviews for the last 1.5 years, and he said, Adam, I've got companies that are doing, 4 or 5x, and they have not a shred of the really the detail and understanding of their business that you do. And I think that has just helped us really know which it's. To me, I built a machine at this point, and coming from manufacturing, love machines.
Yeah.
And it's where it's like marketing's a dial, and production and sales and expenses and revenue and all of those things. But we still continue to do much better than my wildest dreams can fathom. But it's almost like I turn this dial, this happens over here. I turn this dial, this happens over here. But you can't get there if you're not focusing on understanding all the inputs and what the direct output is.
And so you have it. So with that kind of level of detail and understanding, how do you then also, on the other side of the brain, where you want to be creative or try things? Because I think with the people, everybody that I've talked to, most people lean to like the, hey, I want to try a bunch of stuff. And they're not to that level of what you're talking about, which I think is super important. But also you do have to have, I think, a certain percentage of like, let's try this, or else, there's plenty of businesses that we could probably all name and know that we knew before. And then, because they weren't willing to try.
If I were to look at a spectrum of, visionary and just throws stuff against the wall and hopes it sticks, and then like detail oriented, I feel like I can operate within the first 10 or 15% of each. And then all the minutia in between is where I drive myself bonkers, where I can't do something and see an actionable result. So the benefit is my wife's an accountant. So when I go super visionary, she doesn't necessarily go detail, but she challenges me to think through the process and validate and make it logical, right? So then when I'm super in the weeds, usually she's also the one trying to pull me out. I'd say the benefit of how we have gone to market is from a visionary perspective. Yeah, sure, I've got a lot of ideas, but everything we're doing right now is pretty data driven. This is working now. Our biggest competitor, I can buy data and find out what their best selling flavor is. And if it's one I don't have, well, that's a pretty great way to start taking market share. Ford's getting their butt kicked by Tesla. Why don't we make an electric car? Same thing. So, there's still the creativity and the desire of maybe how we pack it and put it together. But as far as flavors, the basis of this product, nobody else has done. So there's no data behind that. But we also think it's a niche in the market, similar to the first products that came out that nobody's addressing.
For sure.
So I would say this has probably been one of the, as soon as we came out with the product, I was making a mojito with our lemon lime. And we've done a Moscow Mule. Making a Moscow Mule with our lemon lime is also on our website. So that desire has always been there, and this is in the last 2 weeks we launched this pack, which has been the actualization of this cocktail in a can with the nutrition panel that nobody can beat.
No, that's great. I'm definitely gonna, because I've seen these kind of flavors, Moscow Mule, mojito, margaritas, like as far as in the stores, I feel like they're driving more to almost like a packaged beverage that's already mixed. That everything is already there, and then for on the go, because everybody's on the go, know. So that's why they're trying to. I've seen a lot of other just different brands kind of go towards that angle, and it makes sense.
And that, quite frankly, that's exactly what this is. You want to get a ready-to-drink Paloma. So we've got a strawberry margarita in here, and I think this is the best way to explain it. One of our bigger competitors, they have a margarita in a can, 12 fluid ounces, It's 12.1% ABV, so
Mm-hmm.
you know, little heftier on the vodka.
Yep.
I'm sorry, tequila, and it's 350 calories, and it's 40 grams of carbs, 40 grams of sugar, and it's you pour it out, and it
Mm-hmm.
tastes like a margarita. It's a margarita in a can.
Yeah.
And if you have 1.5 within an hour, you're probably sitting down on the back of the boat. This is no different.
Yeah.
The only difference, the flavor, if I put them next to each other, we don't have this tequila forward because we're 5% ABV.
Mm-hmm.
You taste the tequila, nice and smooth. Just if you made a drink at a bar and it had, you know, almost a third of the tequila as this other, it's the same exact thing. Now, the main difference is 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 100 calories, and gluten-free.
Yeah.
So now if you want a margarita, 45 million Americans at any point in the U.S. are on a diet, okay?
Yeah.
Depending what they're looking at. Are those people drinking margaritas? Doubt it. Carbs, sugar, calories, one of those three, you're getting smoked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Where's the option?
if you want to have something that tastes just like a margarita and you don't want to worry about the junk, this is your option.
Yeah.
The added benefit, let's say families. Wife's on a diet, husband's not. Wife wants margaritas, so does the husband, but wife needs Carbliss because it's no carbs, no sugar.
Yeah.
Is the husband going to buy another pack if he loves the taste of Carbliss, or is he going to be convenient for himself and just buy the same thing? I haven't found another brand that like really tastes. It's not a taste like margarita. It's a margarita.
Yeah.
It's just no carb, no sugar.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very. So you're really going into kind of a market that's not really there yet. You're kind of
The market of premixed cocktails there, the market
Yeah.
of vodka seltzers, like the way I generally pitch it is the seltzers were great. And I mean, it fed the need, especially during COVID, of people wanting to drink and not feel guilty about it. Low carb, low sugar. What the data is starting to show is that people don't want the malt-based, you know, I was discussing with Allie before, they don't want the malt-based seltzers, the high carbonation, low flavor. They're done sacrificing flavor, right?
Yeah.
So the data shows they're going into FMBs, so fermented malt beverage, like Mike's Hard Lemonade, Cayman Jack.
Yep.
Yep. Some of maybe even some of the premixed Moscow mules that are actually made in sugar brew,
Yep.
and they're going into premixed cocktails. Okay, so the ones I was talking about that might be heavy in carbs and sugar, maybe it's the vodka-based seltzer ones,
Mm-hmm.
but they're trying to figure out what they want because they're going away from this low carb, low sugar thing.
Yeah.
Now, imagine if you had a product that was full flavor, like a Cayman Jack or a Twisted Tea,
Yeah.
and it's got all the things that they wanted in a seltzer, 0 carbs, 0 sugar, which is better than most of those. And oh, by the way, it's also spirits based. That is, I think, I don't. We're in a market with others. There isn't anybody doing it like us.
Yeah. Yeah. And where do you see all this going? So you've been in business for now, how long? 4 years?
We launched on store shelves in September of 2019,
Okay.
3 days before we got married.
Okay.
Good time.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, where do you see all this going? Like, where do you want to take this now that it's? I mean, you're definitely
loaded question.
past the mom and pop phase.
Yeah.
So where do you want to take this?
Answer changes every day. So I think, part of what I was saying with those logical next steps, we've had some recent successes that just I could have never made up.
Yeah.
We're the top selling RTD in Wisconsin. We're number 2 in Minnesota, but we've only been fully distributed there for like a year. We're number 3 in Iowa, but we're only 40% distributed.
Yeah.
So anywhere that we are, very quickly become a top contender. And even now, the most recent data, the only person selling more spirits, all of it, brands that have been around 100, 150 years, the only person selling more spirits in Wisconsin by dollars is Tito's.
Really?
So think about all those big name brands that are behind the bar shelf.
Yeah.
We're selling more than they are. So, okay, now that's where it's a loaded question of there's a lot of things that I consider. You went back to the visualization. I created this because I was a dumb consumer. I didn't know any better. And if I did, I wouldn't have done it, quite frankly. There was a ton of things that I learned.
Yeah.
I believe that the products that we were beating were built in a boardroom based off of some high-level data, right? Now I'm operating out of a boardroom.
Yeah.
I'm making my decisions on data.
Yeah.
So the wet behind the ears entrepreneur, I can't get that person back. So I can do it the same way everybody else does, is get the greatest minds and but then now, even if I found a
team and all that stuff,
but you find a consumer, and every consumer's got an opinion, and you need to listen to it. But then, which one's the right opinion, and why? And am I willing to bet on somebody else's for it becomes very convoluted. So I mean, the world is our oyster. I think the biggest benefit is we're only sold to 6% of the entire U.S. nation, and we're just going backyard to backyard, like Craig Culver. It's actually where I stole it from him. He did one time where he skipped, went further than 45 miles from his last store, and it didn't do well. And then he went back, retracted, and then made this plan.
I see.
45 miles from my last Culver's.
Okay.
And I mean, he's built an Wisconsin cheese curd empire with Butterburgers.
Literally.
And so we did the same thing. We tried to stretch, didn't work, came back, backyard to backyard to backyard, and it's incredible. So, I mean, there's so much opportunity. I get it. Get to Florida, go to Canada, go to Europe. I've got 94% of the U.S. population to think about first. And you should get into NA. You should make your own Carbliss vodka. Again, all things that sure we could do.
Yeah.
But we've got a core product that we've got 94% of the population to tap into yet.
Yeah.
So that obviously would be priority number one.
I've heard, the saying where it's like, don't stop doing the thing that got you there. Or don't give up on the core thing and having the thing be the thing. So that's kind of the same belief of it. Yes, you came out with some new flavors and new, but it's still the core and staying within that and then branching out slower than kind of this like mass, hey, I'm just going to go everywhere and see what happens. Very, very interesting, man. It's what you've built too. And I know, I don't know if you could talk about your partnership with the baseball team here.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you could talk about that at all, or
I don't have their logo, so I think it's safe. I'll text Joe afterwards and just let him know I did it. But
like, how did that come to be? I mean, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, they always kind of dream of like certain partnerships, right?
That's a cool thing. They pitched to us first.
Okay.
What he's mentioning is we are a proud partner of the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah.
So going back, one of their director of sales, I believe, this Joe gentleman, he had tried Carbliss, was recommended by Badger Liquor, our distributor. He loved it and starts ranting and raving about it. And I think from, conversations that I had at the beginning, he loved it, but, everybody's like, they look at the can, they think it's the same as everything else.
Yeah.
Badger did an event at AmFam called Indulge, where they bring all their vendors in. They're sampling food and product. So met a lot of the Brewers sponsorship sales team, tried it. Their wives tried it. Their friends tried it. And they're like, yeah, we need to talk.
Yeah.
So, had conversations, took quite a while. But, I mean, honestly, I am super anal about the way we spend money. We've talked about the influencer and marketing. Yeah. Our marketing spend online is the same now as it was 2 years ago, and our sales will be, almost 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Within 2 years. But we spend money where we can sell.
Yeah.
So we can do a sampling in a grocery store. It doesn't cost me any money, and then I get liquid to lips. People buy it.
Yeah.
On social media, they scroll through and they see it. And they're like, well, it's just like the other 20 I've tried.
Right.
I'm not even going to try it.
Yeah.
And they skip it. So it's a wasted ad. That's where the liquid to lips is beneficial, because then they can recognize the difference. The coolest thing about the Brewers partnership for me is it combines traditional marketing with that liquid to lips opportunity.
Right.
So we've got a few billboards around town.
Yep.
Found out,
we've seen them. If you're in Milwaukee, you'll see them. My brothers were just here from out of town. They're like, oh yeah.
Billboards are not cheap.
Yeah.
And then this is our first year doing it. So I think we've got 20 or 25. We're looking to add some more on, but it's a big line item on that old budget, right?
Yeah.
But what happens? That's great. You've seen them, but you drive by it and you're like, oh, if you've never heard of it, I don't count on that doing any transaction for you in your mind. If you've never heard of it, what I look at as traditional marketing is, if you've heard of me and you've tried me, I'm going to assume 99% you probably loved it. It is to keep you top of mind.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm not trying to convert a consumer that's never tried it.
It's never tried, yeah.
The nice thing about the stadium is you're basically paying for a marketing package, and we get the third and first baseline and behind home plate, but then the person can go buy it.
Yeah.
And then let's say they come back and they tried one the last time, and it was like in the 6th inning, and they couldn't buy one after that. Well, now they come back and they see our ads as soon as they walk in, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I tried that. That stuff was awesome."
Right.
And they go right to it.
Yeah.
Now they've consumed 2 or 3. So it is something that at first, I will tell you that the price tag was like, whew.
I bet you can only imagine.
And if you've ever listened to how I built this podcast, Angie's Boom Chicka Pop out of Minnesota, her and Dan Bastian talk about their entrance into the Vikings. They sent all the Vikings free popcorn.
Yeah.
And they were like so excited to get a meeting. And then they're like, "Oh, by the way, it's a lot of money." And you're like, "Well, but you're going to make money off of selling my product."
Yeah.
So it was sticker shock at first, but the partnership has been awesome. And I again, from a marketing perspective, if you've got 20 to 50,000 people showing up, now we've got cans that are made in Ohio. We don't sell in Ohio. So imagine coming from Cincinnati for a Reds game.
Yeah.
And you're drinking it and you're like, "Oh, this is great. What is it? Made in Cincinnati. Awesome." And then you go home, I can't get it.
Yeah.
Can't find it.
Yeah.
Then they message us and they can buy it online.
Yeah.
But it's
But that's kind of where the slow expansion also comes from, because you want to try to stay locked in that radius as much as possible.
Yep. And increase, like, word of mouth.
Yeah.
So our marketing, we knew we had something different out of the gate, and I'm not a marketing person, so my general, there's ways that you can do this with how you do the approach. My general idea was, I want to find the person who loves to find something new and tells their friends about it.
Yeah.
Because when you think about it, within a friend group, if there's 10 or 15 people, there's someone who will randomly, let's say, drink something, wear something, and they have to be enticed. "Oh, Jamar, that looks great on you.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that?
Yeah.
I've never seen that before." But then you have the other person, and this is the person I want to target,
Yeah.
is, "Hey, man, you see this jacket? I look freaking great. And oh my God, it's comfortable. The value is amazing. And I've bought 2 of them." But when they show up at a group, they're telling everybody.
Yeah.
If I can find that person, my word of mouth spreads a lot quicker.
Yeah, yeah. That's great, man. I really love everything that you're doing. I love how you're just that grassroots kind of entrepreneur that really like put this thing together. I just love the people that kind of create something out of an idea, and you're really an operator. You're very, very good at operating. And so, one of the last questions I got for you is, now that you have a team, right? How do you, it's different from, hey, I'm grassroots in this thing. I'm going door to door. I'm finding deals. I'm growing the brand. I got the branding around it. Like, now you have a team of what, 50, you said?
Oh, no. So full-time, I got about 20.
Okay.
And then we have about 150 1099 like brand ambassadors that'll go do those samplings.
Okay.
But yeah, right now about 20 and a few part-time.
So now as operator, owner, founder, like how do you navigate all of that? Now you got people, you got processes, you got HR, you got all these other things as you're building. Because I've talked to a few different people that are kind of in the same kind of predicament that you're in now, and I just would love to hear kind of how are you navigating that space.
Different in each, I would say, department.
Yeah.
So one of the first high-level people we brought in was he's now our executive vice president, but for sales, business development, distribution development, and so I love going to an account and selling, like having something that didn't exist 5 years ago and sharing with somebody in Arkansas that 5 years ago was my bar top, and seeing their eyes light up, like you can't replace that.
Yeah.
So ultimately that's great, but big thing is trust. I chose out of the gate, and part of this was probably my leadership positions in the past. If I'm going to hire you, I know most people say trust is gained. If I went through a few interviews and I did that right, then I need to trust you.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure. I mean, there's going to be cases when that doesn't work out. But if I inherently trust you and I surround myself with people who are, I'm okay at a ton of things. I hire people who are really good at like one or two things.
Yeah.
And so it really just kind of comes to a point where from an operator perspective, I get into the weeds on the stupidest stuff. But then when I find that I'm consistently doing work, our supply chain manager started about a year ago. I was spending every 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., about 6 hours a day, doing orders, doing purchase orders, setting up trucks.
Right.
It's like, okay, this is probably 60% of a job for somebody to focus on it, but I need to do this.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's really become, I focus on the piece of the business that needs the most help where I don't have it. And because I'm so, like, I just consume it.
Yeah.
So I view it as generally valuable. So I create probably more work out of it, but it's valuable for the business in 1 to 3 years.
Yeah.
By consuming that particular portion.
Gotcha.
And then by focusing on it, it takes more time and then eventually hire somebody. And that's kind of been how the dominoes have been falling. We've got director of finance and accounting starting next week. I'd say in the next 6 to 12 months, probably have to bring in a higher level operations person who can do operations, continuous improvement, stuff like that. But it's just, it's been trust. And then I guess to summarize what I said to a guy's name is Mike when he started, if I'm going to hire you, I'm going to hire you and I'm not going to micromanage.
Right.
So as a co-founder with some companies and partnerships, that's valuable. They care about the person behind it. Some don't. Said, if your job is going to be to sell, all I want is if you think it's valuable for me to show up for a product launch, for a market launch, or for a distributor meeting, tell me when to be there, when the meeting is, and let me know maybe where you're staying.
Yeah.
And that's it. So I mean, that's literally, hey, Adam, we got a meeting in Chicago next week, Tuesday at 2. Okay, I'll figure out how to get to Chicago on Tuesday at 2. And everything else he takes care of, and I trust him to do so.
That's amazing, man. Congrats to everything you built. Thank you. Even so far, and I know you're gonna go places, man. If you haven't tried some Carbliss, definitely try it. You got to try it. I know there'll probably be another cut to me sipping on this. But yeah, this is absolutely incredible, man. Where can people find you at? Where can they connect with you, and what kind of opportunities are you looking for? So as this gets out, people can kind of hit you up and get you involved.
Yeah, I mean, so my name's Adam Kroener, and I'm sure the name will be on the podcast or whatever. But
everywhere,
my Facebook and Instagram, pretty easy to find me. LinkedIn too, but what you'll find about me is it's to a fault. I love helping people. As part of my thing in manufacturing, at first I wanted to get promoted to get make that money. But then after a few promotions, I honestly just realized like I can impact more people, and I think that's part of the business thing too. Is I can make good lives for a lot of our team, and then if we do it well, our distribution, their team, right? And if everybody's making more money, and it's economic impact, really.
100%.
So
definitely
on that note, you got questions, reach out. I help far too many people for free, but it's because I just want to see more people succeed.
And you care. You care, man. So thank you for being on the podcast. Definitely comment, subscribe, like the podcast. If you're listening, we're on all platforms. So definitely, give us a like, give us a review. And we're just going to keep rocking, man. And don't forget, like, you guys, when you're listening to this, definitely connect with Adam, but also go try Carbliss, go get involved in the community, figure out ways that you can get tapped in, because, that's how you're able to change your circle, man. And that's how you're able to get these connections, build these relationships, and maybe go golfing every once in a while. It just might help you out. So until the next episode, we're out. Peace.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell for more amazing content that we're going to be putting out. And don't forget, you can change your circle to change your life.